And if you didn't know that's coming, and you're a first-time home buyer and 6 months into it, you have in your back pocket 10 grand.
My name is John Baptiste. I'm one of the owners and partners of local realty agency Mid-Cities. And I have the pleasure today of speaking with Thomas Schepmann.
Yeah.
That's correct, right?
Absolutely.
Owner of your own Goosehead franchise, basically.
That's basically it, yes, sir. Yeah, so I own my own insurance brokerage, so I own agency within Goosehead, yes, sir.
Okay. Well, tell me a little bit about you, how you got started. I mean, we're going to talk about insurance, which most people probably, we all pay it. We all say, what are we paying it for? There could be some people that want to, get involved in the business, and give them a little bit about you and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so, I'm actually graduated from A&M with an engineering degree, did construction all throughout college, and ended up working for Goosehead to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and so went ahead and just gave it a shot. But insurance is one of those things where everyone hates it, but you got to buy it.
Right.
And so it's a tough conversation. That's where, the relationships which you have with your agent is such an important facet of that conversation. You get quotes online, that's great, but if you don't really know what's covered, it's not going to do you any good.
Well, let me ask you about those quotes online. Most people don't know those are just lead generation sites. We all see those ads pop up.
Yep.
Are you paying too much for your insurance? Click here.
Yep.
We're going to get it for $50. And you're like, oh, God, I'm going to get it for $50. And then all of a sudden your phone starts ringing from 30.
Exactly right. Most people don't understand how they got their information. And so that's one of the things I tell my clients, like, that's great if you want to shop outside of me. I don't care what you do. Just don't click those random links. Because like you said, all that is you're by clicking that link, filling it out, you're giving your information to probably 40 different agents. And your phone's going to blow up the next 48 hours.
Right.
And the tough thing with those agents, there might be some quality agents in there, but I would argue majority of them don't really care about who you are. They care about making a sale. Whether they're not going to tell you about their deductibles, their no coverages in certain areas, being under coverage. That's where it's, online you can get lucky and find a good agent, but for the most part, going off someone who you truly trust is such a huge facet because those online quotes rarely have what should be on there.
Yeah, and I know recently I clicked one for something. I can't remember what exactly it was. And it was late. It was pretty late. And the guy called me immediately. And I looked at the time and I was like, where's this guy located? He's calling me. It was after 9.
Really?
And I was just like, he's aggressive, but yeah. I'm not answering the phone. It was after 9. And I was just like, hey, that's a little too much for me. So let's talk a little bit about homeowners insurance.
Sure.
We are a real estate brokerage, and that's a key thing with folks when they're looking to buy a house. I know you were here maybe a month or two ago and talked to the agents about pricing and how it's going up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm sure at this point everyone has seen it, but if you haven't seen it, make sure you're checking your rates because your rates are probably close to doubled over the last year. But just the insurance market as a whole is just abysmal. Pricing has gone up, coverages have gone down, deductibles have increased. And so that's why we're telling all our clients, like, hey, make sure you're reaching out and shopping it right now, just because we're seeing on average insurance going up 30 to 40% year over year. And that's not true for everyone, but that is a good average. That's a very fair assessment. Different carriers are leaving the market, different carriers are coming into the market, but we've probably lost close to 30 to 40% of the companies that write here in DFW have just said we're no longer taking business.
Why is that?
So I think a lot of it, depends upon their profitability, but they just really decided that, being here in DFW, they can't have their prices high enough to still break even on it.
To replace those roofs every 3-4 years,
so that's the big thing is those roofs are a huge one. All the hail we get up here in DFW. Moreover, too, is, when we do get those hard freezes, there's a lot of water damage. And so that's a big one that we see in the insurance world is, you have your roof claims and then you have your water damage.
And that big storm, was that pre-COVID or during COVID?
I think it was right during COVID, right when all that stuff was happening. Yes, sir.
Yeah, because I know it took I know there were some people that it was a couple years before they got everything repaired from that.
Yeah. And once again, that kind of goes to the company that you choose to go with. To an extent, you get what you pay for as an insurance company.
Right.
Not always. There's certainly some diamonds in the rough, but typically if the carriers want to go low, they're cutting something else out as well. And going back to, online quotes, I've seen online quotes. Talked to someone this morning, didn't have any water coverage on it. and the agent didn't tell him anything about that or anything, and probably cost him an extra $200 a year. But
Right.
because he didn't know to ask, he now, if he went with that option, pipe burst inside the home during the Christmas time, he's going to be, out of luck because there's no coverage on it. So that's absolutely where that coverage comes into play of making sure stuff is covered right away on the policy.
So speaking in terms of, I guess we just really don't know, right? So we think, our agents go out and they take someone out and they help them buy a house, maybe their first house. And
Yeah.
They move from an apartment. They're like, they didn't have renter's insurance, so they say you need homeowners insurance. So they either go with who their parents had, or like I said, they're tech savvy. They get online. But what are some of the elements within the policy that people should look for that we don't know?
Yeah. So the biggest one that you're going to see on there, in my opinion, is going to be the replacement cost. So there's two different factors to replacement cost. You have your actual home and then like your personal property.
Okay.
And this is something that most agents won't even tell you. A good agent will just put it on the policy, no questions asked. But that's probably the biggest one, making sure that your roof is covered at replacement cost as well as your personal property. What replacement cost simply means, it means that if you have a total loss on that individual item, whether it be property or is going to be at the roof, they're going to pay how much it costs to rebuild or replace that roof.
Okay.
And in my opinion, that's such a huge deal because you think about a roof, say it's $20,000. If it's not a replacement cost and it's at like an actual cash value, they may only pay you $10,000 and say, hey, you got to pay the rest out of pocket. And if you didn't know that's coming, you're a first-time home buyer and 6 months into it, you have to come out of pocket 10 grand. That's not a fun experience for anybody.
Right, and you're calling the agent up like, I might want to have to sell this house.
Exactly. So that's a big one. And then another thing that I talk about is, the overall, we call it the coverage A, but it's your dwelling limit. It's what the overall home is going to be covered for. Some agents, they're just going to put on there the loan amount and say, hey, how much you buying it for? And they're just going to do it like that. I think that, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a lazy way to do it, just because when you have to file a claim, if the worst case scenario does happen, the insurance company is only going to cover that home to what the actual replacement cost is. Mm-hmm. So if say you're buying a $400,000 home, but the reconstruction cost is only $325,000, you're now paying extra for that $75,000 difference, and you're never going to see that get paid out. And so as an insurance professional, you want to have your agent go through what's called a replacement cost estimator, and that's how we calculate how much we believe it would cost to replace that home. Now, sometimes if you want to increase it, by all means, we can adjust those numbers. And that's why it's good to really talk to your agent, understand what does that mean, what does it not mean. Because there could be a custom finish inside the home that your agent doesn't know about. And the only way for him to figure that out is to have a conversation.
Right. Because you could have gone in and could have got the house for the bare bones price, but then decide to upgrade everything after the fact, which some people like to do.
Exactly. And that's once again where that conversation comes into play, because we can always make adjustments to a policy mid-policy term. So say you're buying a house right now in May and they're going to do all these renovations come September, we'll just put a note in the calendar in August, September, October time frame to reconvene to make sure those additions and custom finishes that have been installed inside the home are reflected on the home insurance policy as well.
Right. Okay. Well, that's good.
It is. It is.
I mean, again, it's one of those things that people just don't think about, because if you don't know, it's not that, you're just not smart about the process. If this is not your job, it's not what you do, you just don't know.
Exactly.
And most people, we just go through life having any type of insurance and not knowing what it's for, just knowing that we have it in case something happens.
Absolutely. And that's where, especially in this insurance market, having an agent that you trust is such an important thing. Because in the past, carriers will kind of be like, oh, yeah, whatever, we'll still pay it, no worries. We are seeing claims get denied probably 2 or 3 times what they were in years past. And that's just because the client didn't tell the agent about something on the property. Right. And because of that exclusion the client didn't know about, now they're not going to have that claim get paid out.
And then they're mad. They're all on the internet. They're bashing the company because they didn't disclose all the info.
Yeah, exactly.
So out here, is flood insurance a big thing? I know we're not actually on, but there are areas even around our office here, not that close, but areas that I know that have seen have flooded, and I see that builders are now building houses in those areas.
The flood insurance is an interesting one, especially here in DFW. This conversation, Houston, very different conversation. The way the Houston waterways work compared to up here, very different. At least here in DFW, majority of homes are not in a high-risk flood zone. Now, I say that in a way of everyone is technically in a flood zone. There's no such thing as no flood zone because there's always a small chance of a flood happening.
Right.
It just means that most homes, it's a 1 in a 500-year chance that a flood happens. So you're talking about a very small percent that can happen on there.
Okay.
But it's one of those things, flood is never covered on a home insurance policy. So when we say
So that's
water
additional.
damage, exactly. When we say the word water damage, that's a big verbiage factor because water damage means pipes bursting. It's something with the plumbing inside the home.
Okay.
Flooding is water from the exterior rising up to the interior.
Right.
And so that's never going to be covered under home insurance policy. It's always going to be through a supplemental policy.
We learned something.
Absolutely.
Now, I know you said that water covers, pipes bursting. Does that cover pipes bursting, say, your sprinkler system?
It can. Typically with the sprinkler system, the damages done with the sprinkler are not going to be high enough where it's going to be advantageous to file a claim.
To file a claim and pay the deductible.
Exactly. And
Gotcha.
so that's where, once again, going back to having a good relationship with your agent is so important, where I will sometimes recommend clients to not file a claim because let's say your deductible is $3,000 and the damage might be $3,500. Sure, you'll have a little bit get paid out, but your insurance next year is going to go up $1,000 because you have a claim on the property. And so that's why sometimes those claims want to be advantageous on where we're going about them. But to answer your question about the sprinkler system, typically it is covered. It's just typically not a big enough damage to file on home insurance.
So a question I had about, so when you say to not file a claim, right? So let's say someone files a claim.
Yeah.
They file a claim, they send the adjuster out or whatever, and they say, okay, it's $3,000 worth of damage. The deductible's, $2,500. So they're like, okay. But then they get someone else who says, well, I can fix it for less. So they decide not to go through with the claim, fix it on their own. Does that still cause their policy to go up?
That's a great question, and we have seen it starting to shift. It used to not be a situation where if you didn't get anything paid out, it'd be no big deal. But we're seeing more and more carriers now. The minute you call and talk to that adjuster, you're now going to have a claim on your account, whether it's a $0 claim saying nothing paid out, or if it does get paid out, it's going to be on the account. It's not an end-all be-all, but as a good rule of thumb, the minute you talk to the claims department with your carrier, just go ahead and assume that it's going to be filed on your account for the next 3 to 5 years.
Wow.
So once again, that's why, talk to your agent. And if you don't want to talk to your agent,
talk to your agent first.
Talk to your agent first. Then I will recommend my clients almost every single time to get in touch with the contractor and get their professional opinion before filing that claim. Because that contractor says, hey, it's not much here, I wouldn't file a claim. They're the professional even more than I am with what your specific situation looks like.
Right.
Now, on the flip side, my grandmother in Houston, she just had her water heater burst. And I first told her, hey.
Now, wait, that little pan underneath this cold didn't catch all the 50 gallons of water?
It didn't catch the hundreds of gallons of water that burst out of there. That's a fair assessment. And
oh, my.
It's one of those things at first I advised her, hey, call the contractor first. And sure enough, she did. And the contractor came back and said, you're looking at over $10,000 water damage. So I'm like, all right, great. We have our answer. Call the adjuster and let's get that claim started. Right. So it can be a very short process. It just depends upon the damage and the extent is done and as well as your contractor you're working with.
And a good reputable contractor, I would imagine, has relationships and he knows how to help the homeowner get that process going. I know a lot of the roofers.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, speaking about the roof, that's a whole different conversation we had. I'll just say this right now: if a roofer knocks on your door and they say, "Let me check your roof out," tell them no. Do not let the random roofers up on your house. If you need someone, call your real estate agent. Call me. Call your agent. They have someone they trust. Just because that's how roofers make their money. It's based on insurance claims.
They're going to find something.
And they're going to find something.
Even if they make it.
Exactly. So just the reputable contract is such a big deal right now because they will actually fight on your behalf with the insurance adjuster because they want to take care of you. Plus, that's how they're making money.
Right. They want to get paid too.
They want to get paid too. It's not a bad thing, but if you can have them help you, hey, add another person to your team in that fight.
Right. Okay. So, man, that's a lot of good information. So I got a question here. It says, and this came from, we put some stuff out on the internet and said, hey, give us some questions that we can ask Thomas, the insurance guy, right?
Okay.
And the question is, what are the deductibles and how do they affect my premium?
Yeah, deductible is probably one of the largest fluctuations aside of price right now in the insurance world. Last year, we used to have lower deductibles. We're now at higher deductibles. There's two facets to deductibles in the insurance world right now in Texas. You have what we call an all-other peril and a wind and hail deductible. Wind and hail deductible, as the name implies, that's your deductible in the event of a wind or hail related event. So a tornado, thunder, lightning, storms, hail.
Right.
As long as you can say that there's a wind item, it's a wind or hail claim. The reason why that's such an important facet is we are now, for the most part, at a 2% deductible, which means it's 2% of your coverage limit. So it's not 2% of the damage is done. It's 2% of what your home is covered for.
And I think people get that confused. I think
Absolutely.
they see that 1 or 2%. They think, well, if it's 10,000, the contractor says 10,000, and I only pay 1,000, but that's not how it works.
Not even close. Not even close. So what that means, like, say your home is covered for $300,000, 2% was going to be a $6,000 deductible. 1%, $3,000, 3%, $9,000.
Right.
And once again, when you're getting your policy set up, it's a conversation to have because, it might be advantageous to go to a higher deductible if you're comfortable coming out of pocket more. But if you're kind of tight on cash and you can't afford a $6,000 deductible, then you need to have that conversation. And you need to figure out what your limit is. And then the other deductible is called an all-other peril deductible. That's anything else that is not wind or hail related. So pipe bursting, vandalism, house burns down. Typically, you just get set at that 1% evaluation. But sometimes we can do lower. They'll go down all the way to $1,000 and go up all the way to $10,000. So that kind of goes into the building of the policy when we customize it for our clients. Like, hey, here's the price with a lower deductible, higher deductible. What's your comfort limit? And then we'll figure out where that comes into play.
So the higher deductible lowers the total premium?
Yes, sir. So higher deductible is going to always make your premium lower. But
premium being what the total amount that you're paying.
Correct. Your annualized price, how much you're paying for your insurance. Sometimes it's not advantageous though. And we have some carriers that go from a 2% to a 3% deductible in our $300,000 home situation. That's $3,000 more out of pocket, but it maybe only saves you $100 a year. Mm-hmm. And from my math, that doesn't really make sense. And so that's just, if you're trying to find the cheapest price, that's great. But I'd recommend really seeing where that fine line comes into play because it may not be advantageous to always go with that higher deductible depending on what it does to that overall price of the policy.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I mean, this is a really good conversation because, again, since we're helping people find their homes and a lot of our agents work with first-time home buyers, I think they automatically think like, hey, I got to get the lowest cost policy I can so I can keep my, my monthly mortgage payment down as low as possible. In reality, this is your biggest investment. And being North Texas, again, you're going to get your roof replaced. Like it's going to happen.
Absolutely.
So, are there any discounts? Because I know personally, they always ask, and Thomas looked over my policy just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But what type of discounts? Like, you always hear this bundling. Who is it? The Flow lady. And they're talking about bundling. Like,
Absolutely.
What is that?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so bundling, if you watch TV for 15 minutes, you're going to see an insurance commercial about bundle and save. What that simply means is when you get your home insurance set up, you get your auto insurance set up with it as well. Typically, that's going to be the best avenue to go down, especially right now in this market. And the reason I say that, some carriers, for travelers, for example, they require you to bundle your home and auto together. So sometimes it's just a matter of eligibility. So that's where we kind of have a frank conversation with our clients. Where it's like, hey, you know what? Might cost you an extra $10 a month for the auto insurance to go with travelers, but if it saves you $80 a month for the home insurance, then hey, let's go with that overall.
That's worth it.
One thing with my agency, though, we're never going to hard sell someone to do the auto insurance. If someone doesn't want to do that, hey, by all means, I understand how that goes. And sometimes it doesn't make sense to bundle. I mean, I have probably at least 30 to 40% of my clients where their home is with one carrier and autos with another carrier just because that's what made sense price-wise.
As a homeowner, you need to look at, and tell me if you agree or not, but as a homeowner, you need to look at your policies as a piece of your business puzzle of your life. Like evaluating them every year or whenever they renew. Not just get the packet and it's renewal time and you look to see what the price did and then you throw it to the side. But actually looking at it and determining if one, the coverage that you currently have is still good for everything that you actually have. Because you could, like we talked about earlier, you could have made those updates or upgrades in the house. And now your old policy really won't cover that, right?
Yep.
For your clients, like how does that process work?
Yeah, so that's one thing that Goosehead, we're one of the few agencies that really advertise this. We actually call it a reshop. So it's not a real word, but it's a word we use, and it's just called, hey, let's reshop the policies. And so literally, I've had 3 conversations this morning with clients. They called in, hey, Thomas, my policy renews in 4 weeks. Let's take a look at it. And so what I typically tell my people is the first year to 2 years, typically your current carrier is going to be the best option. But at that 2 to 3 year mark is typically when those prices change. It is probably a more advantageous option out there for us. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that renewal time period, I mean, typically, stick with your same carrier is going to be the best rate, but a quick 15, 20-minute conversation with your agent could truly save you money. Or there's even some carriers right now that are increasing your deductible, and some of the times that they're not going to inform you other than a piece of paper in the mail. And you don't know what to look for. You're not going to know anything different. You're just going to see, oh, it shows 3%, where it was 2% last year. And with our example earlier, that could be an extra $3,000 out of pocket that if you don't know about, you're not going to be prepared for it.
And then you'll be screaming at the claims person that I got a 2% deductible, and they're like, "No, we sent this to you in the mail."
Yep.
That pile of mail over here that you don't open.
Exactly.
That's where it is.
Exactly, and that's something to be mindful of. It's frustrating, but with how Texas Department of Insurance has allowed it, carriers just have to send you one notification in the mail, and that's all they have to legally do to inform you on a policy change. So it's tough with a lot of insurance companies will send you random mailers, and it's hard to know, what's real and what's not real. Open it up, spend 30 seconds, see if it's real. And if you're not sure, call your agent. Hey, I got this in the mail. Is this you? And literally within 30 seconds, we'll say, no, it's not, or yes, it is. Let's talk and let's have a conversation.
Yeah, because there's some very crafty advertising that
it really is.
That you get the mail and you think like, oh, what is this? This looks very official, something important.
Yeah.
And they're talking about your house, but if you don't go all the way down to that fine print that says, this is a solicitation, you could think otherwise.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely.
That's good advice too, to call your agent. Get something you're not sure of, give them a call, especially for our older homeowners that, and I can speak for, one of my parents, he gets stuff in the mail all the time, and he's like, well, what is this? And he's got to send it to me, and I'm like, it's junk mail.
Yep.
No way, don't get your blood pressure up, just talk to your agent or someone you trust. Security systems. Do they offer, is there really a big discount for having it?
It's a good question. It's a common misnomer with security systems. Yes, there is a discount. On average, it's going to save you less than $50 a year. So it's one of those things, if you got it, tell your agent, save the money, but I would never recommend someone buying a security system to save money on their insurance policy because the math just doesn't work out on that. It is going to be a discount, but it's nowhere near what these, security companies want to think it is.
Right.
Some carriers might be more. We had one carrier that had saved a client over $100 a year. But once again, though, I had a client that it saved them $1 a year. So it just
and they're paying monthly monitoring, exactly. So that dollar, it's the math doesn't math.
Exactly.
And the funny thing is, I spent a summer working with a buyer that was looking for a home somewhere between $1.5 to $2 million.
Yeah.
There was not one house in that price range that had a security system.
Really?
Not one. Yet I can go to your average subdivision of $300,000-$400,000 houses. They've got cameras all around the house. It's like Fort Knox.
Yeah.
And here we got, $1.5, $2 million houses, no security system.
Yeah.
At all. They don't even think about it.
Yeah, what I tell my people is, if it makes you feel more comfortable, go do it.
Right.
Don't ever buy a security system to try to save money. The math's not going to math on it.
Right. What are endorsements?
Yeah, so that's one of those things on your insurance policy. You have your basic 5-6 coverages of your coverage of your property, coverage of your home, your other structures, your loss of use. All those are covered on your basic policy. Everything comes standard on that. Mm-hmm. Endorsements are the items that, as your agent, as myself, I'm going to recommend, hey, I'm going to add this endorsement due to X, Y, or Z. So those water coverages we're talking about, that would be an endorsement on a policy. Whether it's going to be covering for like the foundation water damage, water backup. There's a bunch of little endorsements. Some of them, to be frank, I think are a waste of money. Like something as simple as, having your credit card monitoring on your home insurance policy. Yeah, it sounds cool, but if you file a claim for your home insurance for, someone trying to steal your identity, now you have this claim on your home insurance going to stick with you, and it's going to probably pay out $1,500 max.
Right.
So those endorsements can be very beneficial. And also sometimes they just come standard on a policy because the policy wants to look like, oh, we've got all these extra
We've got
bells and
all
whistles.
these other benefits.
Exactly.
It's just doesn't cost the company anything.
Correct.
But you print it on a piece of paper, and we think that we're buying or getting more than what we're actually getting.
Exactly. And so once again, on those endorsements, same thing. You have a question, what does this mean? Really, if you see it on your paperwork, take a picture, send it to your agent. Hey, what does this mean? And they may not know right off the bat because there's a lot of them that no one ever really uses.
Right.
But they'll get a quick answer. Hey, it comes standard. You're not paying anything for it. Okay, move on. Now there's some stuff that they do get put on there that may not be advantageous, and so that's where it's once again goes to what your specific comfort level is as the insurance buyer or seller. If you have your insurance policy, what your comfort level is really comes down to what's important.
Okay. Now that you have to call or file a claim, it's been some pretty, I guess we've had a little hectic weather here, even the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thunder, lightning, tornadoes, tornadoes all across the country. Someone has the misfortune of having some damage. Like, how does the claim process work with you?
Yeah, so let's go ahead and just talk about assuming it's pretty catastrophic damage. We know we're going to file a claim. We're already past that point. The actual claims process itself is quite simple. It just can be very tedious. So what that looks like, you call your claims department, typically a 1-800 number, or you call your agent. They can transfer you to them. They're going to get you in touch with the adjuster. The adjuster is going to either be in touch with you or be on your property, typically within 48 hours. The adjuster comes out there, takes a look at it, or they'll send pictures to them, and they'll say, hey, first and foremost, they got to figure out if it's covered or if it's not covered.
Okay.
So talking about those endorsements and, kind of give what you pay for policies, there's some times where they're just going to say, hey, this is not within our guidelines. You're not covered, no questions asked. Claim ends there. Now, assuming it is approved, that's when they get into figure out how much they think it's going to cost to fix or replace those items. That's a conversation you have with the contractor. Sometimes the adjuster may say, hey, it's going to cost $20,000 to fix this, but a contractor saying there's no way I can do it under $30,000.
So that begs the question. The adjuster, are they contractors or are they just, taught how to put prices on certain items?
Great question. So it's probably a split. In my experience, majority of them, they have no idea how to patch drywall, how to fix the roof.
Right.
They just know that, hey, I was told that a roof should cost X amount of dollars. And so that's where I will rarely ever say the adjuster said that's the way to do it, just go and do it. We're almost always going to want a second opinion, whether it be your contractor or if you want to hire a third-party adjuster that is not associated with the carrier. That is an option we can go down. Typically, they are going to cost you anywhere between $500 and $1,500 to take a look at that claim. But if we're talking about a $40,000 claim,
right,
it's worth to get that third-party opinion because they will truly fight on your behalf. Because as your agent, there's a limit of what your agent can truly do in that claims environment. That's kind of where we say, hey, at the end of the day, what the adjuster says goes. So it sounds silly, but be nice to your adjuster. If your adjuster comes out there and you're just being a pain in their side, they're probably not going to give you the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
They're humans.
Yeah.
They're just like us. So that's what I'm saying is, if they come out there, just treat them with dignity, treat them with respect. They're not trying to screw you. They're trying to do what they're taught to do, and you just kind of work with them. The name of the game right now in the insurance claims world is to make it as long as possible. So do not get in a point where you're just getting tired, like, oh, whatever, I'll just pay it out of pocket.
Okay.
There's been times where even myself, we got a new roof about 1.5 years ago, and our carrier, they took me about a week before they got back to me, and after that 7 days, I called my adjuster 7 times in one day, left him 7 different voicemails, and sure enough, that next morning, he goes, hey, sorry, Thomas, I missed your call, what's going on?
Right.
And it got finished up real quickly.
Right.
Now, like I said, they're busy. I'm not trying to say they're going to be back to you immediately, but they're going to try to delay that as long as they can to make you not want to go through with that claim.
Right.
It sounds fishy, and it is, and it's pretty frustrating, but, as a consumer, we can't make that opinion.
Right. As a consumer, but as from looking at the business side of it, I understand. They're a business. Insurance companies are businesses, and a business's job is to make a profit. And the more money they pay out, the lower the profit becomes.
Absolutely.
But then, of course, the more money they pay out, the higher the premiums go because you've got to offset it somewhere.
And that's the fine line people want to get upset with these carriers. And like I said, I understand. That's why I'm a third party. That's why I'm a broker. I don't represent Allstate or State Farm, Progressive. I couldn't imagine just having one thing work like that. it's so fresh in these carriers. It seems like they're just trying to screw us common people. And I use this word screw because that's what it feels like right now.
Right.
But we have to remember they are a business.
Right.
If they don't make money, they're not going to be here. And if they don't make money, your prices are going to continue to go up.
Right.
So once again, it's a fine line of where that comes into play. And to be frank, I don't know where that line is, but we're working through it right now.
Yeah, and we need as many carriers as possible in order to create that competition, in order to drive down prices. But like you said earlier, companies are leaving because, I guess the amount of claims that they're having to pay out, again, from the business side, they're like, it doesn't make sense to be in Texas.
Exactly.
If I'm in the Houston area, it seems like it's flooding all the time. Well, I'm sure it probably floods more than we know, but we see the major flooding. So you got constant flooding and you're constantly paying out. You got to make a decision, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. And yes, if you have a claim that you have an adjuster coming out, summer months are coming, give the adjuster some order. We all know if anyone has to get on the roof in Texas during the summer, 100+ degrees with the heat radiating off of the roof, I can't even imagine.
You'd be surprised if something as, hey, have some water, how much that will brighten the adjuster's day to maybe be like, hey, you know what? We'll make sure this gets taken care of.
Right.
It's not a guarantee. But it's a great way to help, push them in the right direction of wanting to make sure you get taken care of appropriately.
Like they say, you attract more bees with honey.
There's some truth to that.
So, all right. Are there any steps that we as consumers can take to reduce our premium besides bundling?
So, bundling is the biggest one. The really right now, it's just tough. It's just we're in a hard insurance market. I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but I also like to just be frank with people. Like, it's just a tough time. Insurance is cyclical. So, I think these rates, I don't foresee it staying like this. But the big thing is, shopping your rates around, seeing what coverages are, and also having a frank conversation with the household of like, hey, what is our comfort level with what's covered?
Right.
Because, if you can't put food on the table, food's more important than a claim.
Right.
And that's where, you got to figure out what works with your household. Because my household's going to be different than your household, which is different from our neighbor's household, of what your comfort level is. So that's the biggest thing is figuring out, what your comfort level is from a price and a coverage perspective. But then also just asking your agent, hey, is there any discounts that maybe we're not utilizing? There's good student discounts. If your child is maybe away at college and they're not driving, that's a different type of policy that can be listed on there. So there's always small caveats. Now, it's not going to be nothing to be crazy, but $20 a month here, $20 a month there, it all adds up.
Right.
And that's where, once again, those conversations are such an important thing of just picking up the phone and calling either your agent or the carrier. And a lot of times they're going to do their best to help you out. We also got to remember your agent's probably doing the best they can do right now. But, any good agents can be honest with you what the situation's really looking at.
Right. And at the end of the day, Thomas wants his clients to be happy so that when someone says, hey, who's your insurance guy? They go, it's Thomas, give him a call.
Exactly.
So, that's the incentive as well.
Yeah. And with that being said, especially with my agency, we're never going to hard sell someone a policy. If you got a better option elsewhere, I love it for you. I will never take business as a personal situation. I have personal clients, but we always start off with, hey, you know what, we're friends, but this is a business transaction right now. If you find something else that's better, let's make sure you're covered correctly, just to make sure you're taken care of. And one thing also on there, Dave Ramsey's great, love him. But I will say the credit situation that he talks about, majority of carriers right now see your credit score as one of the biggest factors in the insurance world.
Okay.
And it's not going to be a huge factor, but it could make a couple $100 a year difference just by getting your credit score up. So obviously, that credit conversation is big in a home buying process, but it does make an impact in the insurance world as well, because there's some carriers that if your credit score is too low, they're not even going to offer you a rate.
Wow. That's another good tidbit that I guess people probably don't think about as much.
No, they definitely don't, because no one talks to about it. It's just one of those things where you don't know what you don't know, and that's where it's important to figure out what these items look like.
Well, listen, Thomas, I really appreciate it. And on your last note that you said about not forcing a policy, when I asked Thomas to take a look at my policies or our family policy, he said, hey, looks like you're good where you are.
Yeah.
So I can speak from experience that he's not going to try and sell you something that you don't need just to get some business. Finally, I will say that for those of you looking to buy a new home for the first time, especially with rates having gone up, talk to Thomas or anybody that you know that you trust about what your insurance premium will look like before you make your offers on your home. Because what happens traditionally is the lender will put in a number of what they think your insurance is going to be, and they're going to say you're going to be your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance is going to be X, and you're going to be like, okay, I can afford that. And then when you actually talk to Thomas, and he says, "Where did you get $1,000 a year for insurance from?" And then you're like, "Well, wait a minute, that increases my payment $200 a month."
Exactly.
It's better to know that going in the beginning up front than to find out halfway through the process that you need to now back out of this deal because it puts you over. And then the lender may say you can't qualify.
Exactly.
So let's get this out the way first. We'll find a house, get the insurance quote so that you have all the right numbers, and then move in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen a couple clients where, like I said, they're budgeted $1,000 a year for home insurance, and that's just non-existent here in DFW anymore.
Right.
That used to be something, 18 months to 2 years ago that was feasible. But the average premium right now in DFW is probably close to $3,300 to $3,500 on the year. Certainly can be lower, can also be higher. But just as a point of reference, if you're looking at your quote from your lender and they're telling you $100 a month for your insurance, call an insurance agent at the homes you're looking at just to see if that's feasible. Because sure, that might be feasible in very few areas, but as a whole, it's probably not the most accurate statement. And it's not your lender's fault. They're not insurance agents.
Right, they're not
just doing
insurance
what
agents.
they think is best.
Right.
But once again, that's why you have a full team. You got your real estate professionals, you have your lenders, and also I would argue in this market, your insurance agent needs to be a part of your home buying team more than ever.
I would agree. Tell the folks how they can get in touch with you if they even just want to have you take a look at what they currently have, see if they can do better, or if they're in the process of buying a home and they want to find out what it's going to truly cost.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm a big phone call kind of guy. Emails are fine, but I'm big on let's hop on a call and just talk. Feel free to call or text me. My number is 817-290-5372, and I'm sure we can put some notes in the video somewhere, but feel free to text or call me, and then my email address as well. We'll put it in there because I got a funky last name. But my name's Thomas Schepmann with Goosehead Insurance. You can Google us as well, but always happy to have a conversation. Even if it's just, hey, what's going on? Feel free to give me a holler. Always happy to assist in any way I can.
All right, Thomas, I appreciate it. As always, you're always coming through with some great information.
Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, and we will see you on the next one.
Absolutely.